The Epstein files came up during Tucker Carlson's debate with U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee. Huckabee sure did play dumb while displaying a shocking level of disinterest when it came to pedophiles victimizing American girls. Take a look.
Welcome back, folks. This video dives headfirst into a heated clash between Tucker Carlson and U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee over the explosive Epstein files. The core issue: alleged ties between Jeffrey Epstein and Israeli officials, and possibly Mossad. The key figures in this showdown: Tucker Carlson aggressively pressing for answers, Mike Huckabee playing defense, downplaying, deflecting, Jeffrey Epstein, the center of the scandal, of course, and high-level Israeli officials like President Herzog and former Prime Minister Ehud Barak. And let's be clear from the start: Tucker is on offense the entire time. Huckabee is reacting. That is all that matters at this point in time. Tucker brings up reports that high-level Israeli officials were connected to Epstein's orbit. Huckabee responds with, "I was not aware." That answer is either incompetence or avoidance. There is no third option. If you're an ambassador and you don't know whether the sitting president of the country you represent was linked to Epstein's circle, that's not a minor oversight. That's job failure level ignorance. And then comes the bigger issue. Huckabee says there are so many other things going on, and Epstein hasn't been a top-tier item. What? So what are we really hearing? We're hearing that the global pedophile trafficking scandal involving American girls just isn't high enough priority? Wow, that's not neutral. That's value judgment. You know what? Instead of me telling a little bit more, let's roll the tape and discuss what we're talking about.
The current president of Israel, President Herzog,
going very well.
apparently was at Pedo Island. That's what it says in the disclosures. And of course, we know that the former prime minister, Ehud Barak, was living on and off at Epstein's house. So still living high-level Israeli officials are directly implicated in Epstein's life, if not his crimes. So I would think that you'd be following this.
Only I was not aware that there was any connection with President Herzog. I would be surprised to hear that. I knew there was about the former prime minister, who apparently had a lot of dealings with Epstein. But there's a lot going on in this part of the world, and frankly, that has not been top line item.
Folks, let that sink in for a minute. The ambassador to Israel just effectively said a sex trafficking network tied to global elite isn't high on his list. That's not just tone deaf. That's political suicide. Now let's move on to the real battlefield. Did Epstein have ties to Mossad? Now, Tucker presses. Of course, Huckabee deflects. Huckabee demands proof. Tucker points to repeated contact with Israeli officials, intelligence-linked figures, and cyber weapons procurement. Here's where the argument sharpens. Tucker avoids flatly saying Epstein was Mossad. He dances around it. The host supporting Tucker outright said it. Huckabee tries to reduce it to contact doesn't equal employment. That's technically fair, but here's the uncomfortable reality. Intelligence relationships are rarely labeled cleanly. Assets, cutouts, informal operatives, strategic facilitators, that's how this world works. So when Epstein, 1, spends heavy time with Barak, 2, has Israeli-linked surveillance around his Manhattan townhouse, and 3, procures cyber weapons for Israel. But the good thing is, at least from what the right says, we're told it's all coincidence. Honestly, that strains credibility.
But you're surprised to hear that the current president of Israel, whom you know, is listed as a visitor to Pedo Island.
Had never heard that. Never heard it even in the Israeli press.
You know, there's like so many other things going on. I don't really have time to be concerned about a pedophile ring tied to Israel that's carrying out sexual misconduct and rape of American girls. So can we just move on now? That's effectively what Huckabee said there. Amazing.
Yeah. So first of all, if I'm ambassador to a country, let's pick a random one, Kazakhstan, and it turns out the current president of Kazakhstan went to, Pedo Island, as he's calling it, with Epstein, that would literally be my job to know that. Like if interviewer surprised me with that. That would be deeply embarrassing. I'm the ambassador to this country. But of course, Mike Huckabee is not our ambassador. He's Israel's representative. But Anna, there was one telling moment there outside of that Epstein conversation. And he said, and of course, there's the overall point, which is like, oh, Epstein, what's the big deal? I mean, he was just raping American kids. He didn't even do anything to my beloved Israelis. In fact, he worked for Israel and getting cyber weapons and so many other deals. But my favorite moment was actually, he said, well, I didn't even hear anything about that, even in the Israeli press, which was an accidental confession that we do such a great job of controlling the American press. They never criticize Israel. But in the Israeli press, you could actually find out some truth because we can't call them anti-Semites. And even in the Israeli press, there was no reporting on this.
No, Cenk, you're absolutely right. I did catch that actually. And as I've said on this show a million times before, I get my news about Israel from Israel. So I'm very aware of what gets covered in Israeli press versus US press. And it hadn't really struck me until the moment I heard Huckabee say what he said. I actually haven't seen much in the Israeli press in regard to the Epstein files. I certainly haven't seen anything about President Herzog. So that's not to say that there isn't any reporting at all. Obviously, I'm not like a superhero. I can't read every single thing that they put out. But in terms of like the main publications, I certainly haven't seen anything about the president's relationship with Epstein. But look, there's one other part of this Epstein portion of their conversation that I want to get to, because look, Epstein's ties to Mossad did come up. And at this point, anyone who is denying that Epstein had a close relationship with Israel is either ill-informed, okay, I'll give them that if they just don't know. But in the case of Mike Huckabee, I would just venture to say they're just trying to cover it up. So let's watch that exchange.
You attacked me personally for suggesting that Jeffrey Epstein had ties to Mossad, and you said that.
You think he does?
What's very clear, he does from the files.
You think he does? From where do you get that?
That's Huckabee trying to flip the burden of proof. But notice something. He never firmly denies the possibility. He just demands documentation. That's classic political maneuvering. Demand evidence while knowing key files are sealed. But let's remember, this is here where the critique gets sharper. If Epstein had 1, Russian intelligence ties, 2, Chinese intelligence contacts, or 3, Iranian government connections, tell me, will we be hearing there's a lot going on in the world? I don't think so, folks. We would hear national security crisis, foreign infiltration, and immediate investigations. But I will tell you, all of a sudden things change when Israel enters the frame. Suddenly, 1, I haven't heard that. 2, it's not top priority. Or 3, where's the evidence? Folks, that's a double standard. Flat and simple. And when Huckabee says even the Israeli press hasn't covered it much, that line unintentionally exposes something deeper: selective scrutiny.
Well, the fact that he was in contact repeatedly with members of the Israeli government, including the current president and the former prime minister, and all kinds of Israeli intel-connected people, I'm not saying he worked for Mossad. I don't think we know that. But there's no question that he had extensive contact with CIA.
I think you said it, a turning point event. Everybody knows Jeffrey Epstein.
I said everyone thinks, and it turns out everyone was right, that he did have.
I'm not sure everyone was right or everyone thinks.
You haven't looked at the evidence, and you're not pushing for the release of the total corpus of evidence. And I'm confused because I want to believe that your goal is to get to the truth, and the fastest way to do that is by releasing the evidence. Don't you think?
You suggest that I can release the evidence?
I'm suggesting you could call for it right now.
Well, fine, call for it. I would let's have it all open. I thought it was being all opened up for everything I.
Once it's open, I hope you'll read it.
When Huckabee said that, it sounds confident. Let's open it up. But you know what? It's reactive. Tucker forced him there. In terms of optics, Tucker wins. Why? Because he's pressing. He's assertive. He framed Huckabee as either uninformed or evasive. Unfortunately, Huckabee looks defensive, disengaged, politically cautious. And in a highly intensive conversation about elite corruption, cautious equals suspicious. That's just how audiences are going to read this.
I'm pretty sure that Huckabee is acutely aware of Epstein's close relationship with Israel, and yes, Mossad. I do have one, criticism of portions of this interview that Tucker carried out, because look, everyone knows what you already think, Tucker, so just say it. Okay, you've already said it before. Yeah, Epstein worked for Mossad. Now, whether he was an agent or an asset, we don't know for sure. And I don't even think it really matters. I mean, just this week, a story that Dropsite News broke had to do with how Ehud Barak would spend so much time at Epstein's Manhattan apartment that the Israeli government set up security, including in-depth surveillance of that Manhattan apartment.
And
You're going to tell me that Israel didn't know? You're going to tell me Israel didn't know? Really? Come on.
No, I just got to say this because I keep mentioning the cyber weapons, and I'm not sure people are like fully comprehending it. Think about it, guys. Is there just a random guy who's not working with Mossad? Hey, honey, I'm going to go grab some milk and eggs from the grocery store, and on my way, I'm going to get Israel cyber weapons. No, there's no such person. You get Israel cyber weapons if you work for Israel. That's not complicated at all. So like this, they're all lying to you. It's right there. He procured cyber weapons. That's an intelligence operation, and you work for that government. That's the most obvious thing in the world, let alone the mountain of other evidence, including the Israeli spies staying at his place, and literally every international deal he did was for Israel. They're just lying to you in the most brazen way you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I highly recommend watching the full conversation. It was about 2.5 hours long, give or take. And they even talked about Tom Alexandrovich, who was one of the Israeli government officials having to do with, cyber protection and stuff like that. He was in the United States, got caught in an FBI sting operation, attempting to solicit a 15-year-old for sex. And the United States allowed him to fly back to Israel, and he hasn't been extradited. Doesn't look like Israel would even agree to extraditing him. It was a great conversation. Please check it out.
Folks, this debate really isn't about Mossad alone. It's about three things. 1, elite protection. 2, intelligence community. And 3, political loyalty versus truth-seeking. Tucker's strategy is perfectly clear. Push for total transparency and frame resistance as guilt. Huckabee's strategy is equally clear. Minimize, deflect, avoid escalation. One plays for outrage. The other plays for diplomacy. In this format, unfortunately, outrage wins. But here's the grounded reality. There are credible reasons to investigate Epstein's international ties. In addition, there is also a danger in turning inference into certainty. The strongest position is demanding full release of files without turning speculation into verdict. Still on this stage, in this exchange, Tucker controlled the momentum. Huckabee reacted. And in political media battles, momentum, unfortunately, is everything. And as always, folks, stay vigilant, patriots. Stay vigilant.